Let's talk about this All Out card coming up from Toronto next Saturday. By the way, the Dynamite numbers rebounded this week from 472,000 last week up to 584,000 this week. Still tied for the third lowest total since May, but it's an improvement. Now, here's the card as it currently stands for All Out. Brody King and Bandito. They will be defending the AEW Tag Team titles in a four-way ladder match. Why? Because why not? They're holding 3 qualifying matches for the other spots this Wednesday, with the Young Bucks against Juice Robinson and Austin Gunn. That'll be a win for the Bucks. Luchasaurus and Kip Sabian against Jet Speed, which should be a win for Jet Speed. And Top Flight takes on Josh Alexander and Hechicero, representing the Don Callis family, and they will almost assuredly be winning that match. So Brodito, the Bucks, Jet Speed, and the Callis family looks to be it. And I've got the Young Bucks winning the tag team titles. And I think from there, I think we get Cope and Christian eventually when they do win the titles, and they will. They win them from the Young Bucks. Eddie Kingston is coming back. He returns one-on-one against Big Bill. Eddie has not wrestled since May of last year against Gabe Kidd. That was where he broke his leg, he tore his ACL, he tore his meniscus. I mean, his leg and his knee basically were just destroyed. He also revealed this week that the day of the surgery, his insurance company, which had told him they would cover it, all of a sudden the day of, they said, you know what, we're not going to cover it. Which is a wonderful thing to say to somebody on the day of their surgery when they're already stressed beyond belief. Not the first time they did that to him. On the day of a surgery. He said it happened 3 years ago, the day he was supposed to have hernia surgery. But Tony Khan stepped in this time to take care of it, even though he got hurt, technically in a New Japan ring and not an AEW ring. How many people does this happen to on a daily basis who aren't lucky enough to have a billionaire step in to pay for it? The healthcare system in this country is infuriating. The setup for this match wasn't infuriating. It was just a very random way to get Eddie back in the mix. It's a way to get him back and get him a win. Big Bill randomly called him out last week on Collision as a fellow New York guy. And that was it. That's how we ended up here. But then again, look, many years ago, a young man named Stone Cold Steve Austin started randomly calling out Bret Hart on television when Bret had been gone for months and months. And they ended up having a classic rivalry. I don't think Eddie Kingston and Big Bill are going to have a classic rivalry, but I do think Eddie Kingston is going to get the win here. I think that that's probably the easiest prediction to make on this entire show. Actually, no, the second easiest prediction to make on the entire show. Because we also have Mercedes Moné defending her TBS championship against Riho, who did not look great in that tag match on Wednesday. It was her first match back since July of last year. Riho is wrestling Robin Renegade on the September to Remember episode of Dynamite this Wednesday, which is actually a 3-hour block from 8 to 11 p.m. Years ago, Mercedes said that she would love to form a faction with the Renegade twins. And here we have one of the twins wrestling Riho. Maybe this is the start of that faction. Faction or no faction, Sydney Sweeney has a better chance of beating Mercedes for that belt than Riho does. So more than Eddie Kingston and Big Bill, I think the easiest prediction to make here on this card is that Mercedes is going to retain her TBS title. The Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and MVP take on Ricochet and the Gates of Agony. There were reports previously about MVP and the Hurt Syndicate not wanting to lose the tag team titles to FTR, and there were certain names floated that they would be willing to lose to, and the Gates of Agony were on that alleged list. Well, time to put your money where your mouth is, and this is a big opportunity for the Hurt Syndicate to put these guys over in a major way. So let's see what happens. I'm going with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony for the win here. MJF takes on Mark Briscoe in what Briscoe said last night on Collision is going to be a tables and thumbtacks match. Tables and tacks. There's something we haven't seen before in AEW. Boy, I haven't seen one of those in a while. MJF is defending his CMLL title this Friday at Arena Mexico against Mystico. He will lose that championship, and then the next night he will, or the next day, I guess, he will redeem himself here. MJF will beat Mark Briscoe. Yeah, I forgot to mention that this is now a 3 p.m. Eastern show. So I assume that means that the 0 hour is starting either at 1 or 1:30. But it went from an 8 p.m. Eastern start time to a 3 p.m. Eastern start time for all the obvious reasons. FTR takes on Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. This is a match that has been on the radar and I think fairly predictable now for many months that it was building to this. The build has been very weird. No more so than on Wednesday. Cope and Christian were not on the show. They had a pull-apart brawl the previous week, which was fine, standard stuff. They weren't there on the show on Wednesday. FTR was. They came out with Stokely Hathaway. It was their last night on, as far as Dynamite goes, at the 2300 Arena. They wrapped up their residency with their taping the next night. But they came out, and the segment served no real purpose other than just to try to make them look like tough guys and put heat on them by trying to pick a fight with the fans. Like they thought that they were transported back to the ECW arena of old in 1997 and they were the Dudley Boys, except they're not the Dudley Boys in the ECW arena in 1997. But there you had Dax getting up in, fans' faces and they're trying to start something. Then they ended up beating up the cameraman and his assistant. And it's like, okay, he's beating up production crew members. I don't know how this is supposed to put more heat on their match with Cope and Christian. This was just a very bizarre segment here. I don't know what the hell that was. So they got one more night on Dynamite tomorrow. I think they're having a face-to-face and let them go out there and cut promos on each other. That's really all you can do at this point. The match itself should be very good. And I see no reason for Copeland and Christian to lose here, so I have them going over on FTR for the win. And then inevitably, it all comes down to just what event he wants to do it at, but they will win those tag team titles. And I think it'll be from the Bucks. I don't know if it's a Full Gear thing. I don't know if that's, World's End. Maybe he wants to save it for the end of the year. I don't know. But I think that's where this is headed. Kazuchika Okada will defend the AEW Unified Championship in a 3-way match against Konosuke Takeshita, who beat Anthony Bowens last night, and the winner of the match this Wednesday between the Beast Mortos and Mascara Dorada. I would assume we're looking at Mortos joining the other two. Should be a great match. Mortos is going to be in there to take the losing fall when Okada retains. It's the only reason that he, or Dorada, but I figure it's going to be Mortos. Literally the only reason they're in this match. Which then spares Takeshita from a direct loss, while preserving him for a future singles match with Okada where he then wins the title. Timeless Toni Storm defends the AEW Women's World Championship. So again, you look at this card here. They turned the tag team title match into a 4-way ladder match. They turned the unified title match into a 3-way. And we have another 4-way. We have 2 4-ways, at least, on this show. This time, it's Timeless Toni Storm defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, and Tekla. And as with the unified title match, as with the tag team title match, you look at all the talent in there. It's certainly, should be an excellent match. Not how I wanted to get Toni Storm and Jamie Hayter in the ring for the first time, but, I'll take it. This is a chance for them to shake things up. This is a match where I think that Chris Statlander should win, and I think she's going to win. I'll make a bold prediction here. I'll go against the grain because I do think there's a really good chance it could happen that Chris Statlander is going to win the Women's World Championship. They've been teasing lately that she might join up. She might link up with the Death Riders. We just saw Daniel Garcia join the Death Riders. Especially if they follow through with her. This would be the place to have her, go over strong and win a championship and bring the title into the Death Riders. Not that I'm saying I want her to join the Death Riders. I greatly dislike that idea, but I'm going with Chris Statlander to win the title. Nothing wrong with shaking things up a little bit and doing a title change here. Statlander is great. Jon Moxley is going to be wrestling on the show against Darby Allin in a coffin match. And I don't think this is the end of their issues together. I think Jon Moxley is going to win this coffin match. And they're going to continue to play this feud out for a little while longer. And Hangman Adam Page defends the AEW World Championship against the TNT champion, Kyle Fletcher in a match where only the AEW World title is on the line. It's also a match where Fletcher has guaranteed that he's given his word that no member of the Don Callis family will get involved. Now, this is coming off an episode of Dynamite where Ricochet had a gentleman's agreement with Shelton Benjamin that the Gates of Agony would not get involved in their match on Wednesday, and then they did. Because they're heels, and heels cannot be trusted. But we're going to have to take Fletcher at his word here. He said no member of the Callis family would get involved. That doesn't necessarily preclude someone else who's outside the Callis family from getting involved in this match. Although, other than MJF, I'm not sure who that person would be. It doesn't matter, though. This should be a great match. Hangman Adam Page is going to retain the championship. Kyle Fletcher was not even the first choice to be in this spot. Again, Wardlow was reportedly going to be in this spot and isn't, only because he's hurt, so they slotted Kyle in there. So Kyle has even less of a chance of winning the championship than he did before we read about the Wardlow injury. Anyway, I'll have coverage of All Out with my full thoughts as part of the Sound Off next Sunday. That'll be episode 930.